Alright, so the last time we were here, hey, quit that. We talked about Sonic's debut as a platforming mascot, and that game was, well, you know. I feel like after sitting on my last video for a while, I was a bit too restrained with my opinions on the game. Every bit of criticism that I aimed at Sonic 1 was absolutely deserved in my eyes, and I will go down with this ship. But we're past that now. I don't want to talk about Sonic 1 anymore, I'm not going to talk about Sonic 1 anymore, so let's just talk about its infinitely better sequel, Sonic 2. While also making direct comparisons and references to Sonic 1 to showcase the improvements between the two games, because that's kind of how these videos work. So, Sonic 1, as I discussed in my last Sonic Retrospective video, is a game I feel needs to be experienced multiple times to really reach its full potential. It can be a fun time, but the inconsistent pace and often unfair hazard placement can make the first playthrough or even subsequent ones a bit of a drag. So then, how does Sonic 2 compare? Released on November 21st, 1992 for the Sega Genesis, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 seemed to be the step forward that the series needed to truly take off. And I don't mean in terms of sales numbers or anything like that. Sonic 1 has the best sales of any game in the franchise, partially due to the dozens of re-releases, and it was undoubtedly a huge success. But Sonic 2 really takes some big steps forward in the design department. Bright new colors for the stages, a slightly altered sprite for our hero, and a new companion to tag along on his adventure, Miles Tails Prower. Now then, what exactly am I looking for in this sequel aside from some nice visual upgrades? I mean, okay, the obvious answer is less of this. Oh, man, am I engaged right now? But beyond that, you know? All I'm really looking for is an improvement on what the first game started. The concept of the first game was fine, it was just the execution that was flawed. So instead of running you through the creative intent and level design and all that stuff again, let's just start off with a new mechanic that reshapes the entire game. Well, what could possibly be that different? He still runs like he did in Sonic 1, jumps like in Sonic 1, experiences head trauma when you roll into a ball like in Sonic 1, but now he has the Spin Dash. If you don't know what the Spin Dash is, prepare to have your mind blown. You see that? The ball's at an angle now. If you crouch while at a standstill and hit the jump button, Sonic will begin the spinning charge-up animation. By mashing the button a bunch and then releasing down, he'll shoot off in whatever direction you're facing. The speed of the spin dash determined by how good you were at the button mashing minigames in Mario Party.
It's a fucking god!
This ability, while admittedly simple, is a godsend. It allows for much easier traversal of the terrain and more creative solutions for getting around. Don't feel like running? Spin dash. Large slope to climb? Spin dash. Big gap to cross? Spin dash plus jump. Not only is this exactly what Sonic 1 was lacking, so much so that the Spin Dash is featured in the mobile port of the game, but it also allowed the devs to get more creative with level design. Instead of being forced to take specific paths in the exact way the devs intended, you can create your own solutions, and it's crazy how much more fun stages can become when this single tool which dictates gameplay is given to the player. It makes it feel more like you're earning that speed by making proper use of the abilities that the game gives you. Compare this to Sonic 1, where a lot more of the speed you get is just when the stage decides you can go fast. And yeah, that might sound like a bit of a blanket statement, but hear me out. Sonic 1 definitely has its moments where you keep speed because you've earned it, but those are concentrated primarily in Green Hill Zone. Even Spring Yard and Starlight Zone, which I said to be among the better stages in the game, aren't really built like that. Moments like these, where you just get big loops and there's nothing you can do other than go fast, are a bit different from these, where proper jump timing and enemy avoidance is what nets you your speed. Now, before I really dig into the level design, I realize that Sonic 2 is a longer game than Sonic 1. While there are only 2 acts in each zone instead of 3 now, there's still many more zones than the original title had. With that in mind, I'll save you the pain of going through every single zone in depth and instead just try to touch on some more general points of improvement. The first zone of the game, Emerald Hill Zone, is basically a glorified recolor of Green Hill Zone. Differently from Green Hill, however, is an improved sense of both verticality and speed. For verticality, Sonic 1 does have levels that offer different paths to reach the end of the stage, but Sonic 2 just feels much more open about it. You can even see it in the clip that I'm showing right now. I got a boost up to a higher section of the stage, but because I was going so fast, I fell through to the lower path. But even so, you can still see me passing multiple areas where it'd be possible to regain that height, like these yellow springs here. It makes the stage feel much more connected and thought out as a whole. The speed is aided not only by the numerous slopes and loops throughout the stage, but also by the Speed Shoes power-up. Both Act 1 and 2 have Speed Shoes placed very early on in them, and they do a fantastic job of laying a foundation for the rest of the game's structure. You can go fast, really fast, but sometimes it'll cost you. That cost might come in the form of losing a higher path with secrets and goodies, or maybe Sonic getting his clock cleaned. But Emerald Hill is laid back enough in terms of how its hazards are placed that even taking a hit doesn't really mean anything. You just get up and go again, and with the spin dash, losing your speed isn't nearly as frustrating as it was in Sonic 1. Honestly, that right there sums up the biggest difference between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2. It's just less frustrating. In a game where you move this fast and there are obstacles to avoid to pose a challenge, it's pretty much inevitable that you'll get hit by enemies or spikes that appear within a moment's notice. Make no mistake, I still got hit a lot in this playthrough, but Sonic 2 just feels much less cheap with it and more forgiving as a whole. Something like running off of a slope at top speed and clipping a set of spikes because of it feels kind of like a learning moment. You get the sense that maybe it's better to jump off of slopes rather than just fall off of them, and that's built up through this first zone with their trap and enemy placement. Now compare that to something like Labyrinth Zone, where you're jumping up the world's slowest set of platforms and suddenly get blindsided by a spike ball. What did you learn from that? Take it slow, I guess, but what's fun about that? Sonic 1 teaches caution where Sonic 2 teaches reaction, and to me, that's just much more appropriate for a Sonic game. To compare, yeah, certain stage set pieces are slow like in Sonic 1, but there's a key difference. Sonic 2 does a better job of making stage gimmicks feel like moments of active player interaction with the environment, like with the spinning bolts in Metropolis. You're actively moving the platform while dodging enemy attacks and trying not to fall off, and this is more involved, and let's face it, just more interesting, than slow block in lava. Even something like the lifts in Hilltop wins purely off of style points, and the fact that these sections aren't nearly as long as Marble Zones. And maybe it's just something that's more of a feeling than something that can be expressed with words, but I've played Sonic 1 and 2 an absurd amount of times, and my recorded playthroughs for each of these games could not have been more different. In addition to the spin dash, we've also got a brand new staple for the franchise, Super Sonic. So y'all remember how in the last game there were only 6 Chaos Emeralds to collect via special stages, right? And all they really did was grant you an ending that wasn't this smug f***wad at a Cirque du Soleil audition? Well, now that the previously unaccounted for 7th Chaos Emerald has joined the party, we get to see their actual use. Upon completing the 7 special stages, which you can warp to by crossing any checkpoint with 50 rings, you unlock the ability to transform into Super Sonic. The only stipulation is, again, having 50 rings. Once you've collected enough and jump, Sonic will immediately go Super Saiyan. Immediately go Super, which gives him insane speed and invulnerability to any form of damage, except bottomless pits and being crushed. The kicker here is that your rings will constantly tick down, and once they hit 0, it's back to this stupid blue. It would be nice to not be forced into this state as soon as you jump with 50 rings, but Super Sonic's still a really fun addition to the game, especially when you just want to completely ignore the levels that the devs painstakingly put together. I'm not going to touch on the special stages very much. They're this pseudo 3D half-pipe that honestly I don't have the patience for, so I won't be giving it the time of day. Let's move on. Now, the thing is, that whole discussion on Emerald Hill pretty much sums up what the rest of the game is. Little teaching moments strewn throughout the stages that make you learn how to play them more efficiently, thereby making the game more fun. Just to name a few examples, we have Chemical Plant, which teaches you that maybe it's a good idea to avoid water. Mystic Cave hammers home the whole jump before pits and ledges concept that Emerald Hill introduced. Metropolis Zone makes it very clear that avoiding enemies is a perfectly reasonable strategy if we want our little hedgehog to be able to afford the bus fare back home. And each stage does a decent job of building on Emerald Hill, kind of like what I wanted in the first game, so now do you see why I like this game more? I may not be selling it perfectly, but even as you get further into Sonic 2 and the zones start getting more difficult, the fun factor doesn't really waver. Slowing down in this game doesn't feel like a slug, because if you really know what you're doing, you can typically find a way to go fast. And even if you can't, it's much easier to enjoy a game that has proven it'll deliver interesting level design even when it slows down. And even beyond all this talk of mechanics and level design, the zones in Sonic 2 are just cool. I already talked about Emerald Hill being the cooler Green Hill zone, but what about the other stages? Chemical Plant has a really nice aesthetic and packs some absurd speed in select areas. Aquatic Ruin mixes land and underwater sections like it's nothing, without ever feeling like a slog, and with minimal. Casino Night is just fun. Look at all the bright colors and the music and the... Hilltop Zone is filled with all these lifts and seesaws that help you traverse the extremely vertical terrain, and it's just fun to look at how they approach the Y-axis completely differently here as opposed to in all the other zones. Mystic Cave is scary, we don't have to talk about that one. But check out these cool spinning bolts that you can run on in Metropolis. That's a really cool set piece. Okay, since I ragged on Sonic 1 quite a lot, I think it's only fair that I talk about the bad parts of Sonic 2. Yes, this game is a large improvement on the foundation that the first game laid out, but what would a Sonic game be without its kinks? A more infamous part of the game takes place in Chemical Plant Zone. Near the end of Act 2, there's this section where you have to jump up through these moving blocks, trying not to get crushed on the way up. Thing is, the entire tube fills up with water once you start climbing. I couldn't tell you how many people despise this part of the stage, and I can understand why, despite the fact that it doesn't really bother me anymore. The timing for these blocks can be kinda picky, and getting crushed is easy enough to do, especially as a newer player. When you factor in the extremely slowed movement and time limit due to being underwater, it really makes you wonder why they put this in the second zone of the game. Then there's the equally infamous spot in Mystic Cave, simply known as the Spike Pit. In Act 2, there's a part where the player runs directly towards a hole with spikes at the bottom, similar to other areas within the zone. To avoid this, you have to jump before you fall and grab onto this vine, pulling down the bridge that allows you to cross. The thing is, unlike other pits in the zone, there's no way to escape this one! Essentially, it's a bottomless pit, unless of course you enter the pit as Supersonic. If you're unfortunate enough to do that, you'll have the pleasure of waiting as your rings slowly tick down to your inevitable death. Oh, and you get to watch Tails go. Oh, and we can't forget about Metropolis Zone, can we? The only zone with 3 acts and probably the hardest 3 acts in the game. A lot of this is due to the fact that it also houses the most unholy trio of enemies in the game: Asterons, Shellcrackers, and Slicers. Asterons like to hide in walls and jump scare your ass, Shellcrackers have a giant fist that has to be avoided to kill them, and Slicers are just... The only other thing that outwardly stands out as bad to me is Sky Chase Zone, a slow auto-scroller where half of your jumps get ruined as Tails tries to catch Sonic right before you're able to land on an enemy. Seriously dude, you don't have anything better to do than play chicken with my fucking feet? Is this because of the Spike Pit? It's because of the Spike Pit, isn't it? So where exactly does this all bring us? To put it simply, I think Sonic 2 is what Sonic 1 wanted to and should have been. It understands and takes advantage of what Sonic truly wants to be: colorful and varied environments filled with fast-paced platforming, fun movement, and very little bullshit. And the more I think about it, the more apparent it is that there's no reason they couldn't have nailed this in the first title. Tweaking the level design to make acts drag less, implementing a system that provides speed when the player wants it, removing stupid dumb garbage like, oh, I don't know, maybe this? But really, cracking down on level design and adding the spin dash is what carried Sonic 2. If you took the spin dash out of the game, I have little doubt it would lose a reasonable chunk of its fun factor. Something that I also feel is pretty important to mention here is that I recorded this entire game in one sitting. Now, I did the same thing with Sonic 1, but in Sonic 2's case, I was supposed to just be testing some footage. I was only intending to play through Emerald Hill Zone, and before I knew it, I was rolling up to the Death Egg. As each zone ended and I thought, I should really go to sleep, I just kept saying, one more zone won't hurt. And if that's not a testament to how good of a game this is, then I don't know what is. Sonic 2 is just a really good game. Go play it.